there is some truth to the fact that AI will reduce in some aspects of our life the amount of carbon. But again, and this is for me, the biggest misconception is AI is just a tool. First of all, because it can be used for good and for bad,
Mm.
but also that even when you think you're using it for good, are you using it correctly and optimally, right? So, and I can give you a couple of examples for this, right? So you've got when you put a query out, the amount of energy that you use to actually process a query is not that much. Because what tend to happen is you send your query, the model is loaded on a server on one GPU. This is the equivalent of a very powerful server that you would have at home, right? A good graphics card with a good CPU would run some of the later models. Not all of them, granted, but some of the very good ones. So when you're looking at this, it doesn't use that much power to do something for about 10 seconds or 20 seconds. What we then forget is what was used for training, what was used for retraining, what was used for transferring the information back and forth, what was used for all the storage, because all of the background is then being stored. Everything that's being produced is being stored. So we need to look at the full story. Once we've looked at it, then we've got to look at what is it that I'm doing with it. So that's where when it started and everybody was generating pictures of cats or people were doing, and look, I'm a culprit for that, and I've done it with the kids, and it was really fun. We uploaded one of the pictures, and we're like, draw it like an anime. They into their anime, so we're like, draw
Mm.
it like an anime, and then we printed it, right? And they loved it, but technically, we've emitted carbon for something that was not
Yeah.
needed.
Mhm.
This is very different to using the same techniques for optimizing cities, traffic, builds, expansions, or using this to optimize. When we look at code and code development, constraints is what makes it run faster. I
Yeah.
always laughed when I went through my my masters and they were telling us, oh yeah, and that was our professors at the time. And bear in mind, that was 20 years ago. Were literally
Mm.
telling us when we used to code, the variables that we used couldn't be more than 8 characters long. I mean, those are constraints that are put because of the environment within which you code and build and develop, right?
Mm.
All of that is gone,
Mm.
absolutely gone. The other thing is when you were doing it with low level code, you were far more optimal because there was far less wastage in terms of like cycles and other sort of things. So yeah, you were forced down that route. And it's the paradox of the more storage you have and the more stuff you put in your closets. Cloud is the hotel room. Cloud is absolutely the hotel room. They do everything for you. But if you don't know how to clean the floor, fix certain things, make your own food, and so on, then what you do is you go to the hotel room because everything's done for you, but
Mm.
it costs you,
For
right? And then if your cash constraints, pretty cash rich, or if you can borrow, or if you think that this is a good investment for you to go buy a house, you buy your house. The difference between the rental and the house is if I go build my own data center, I have it for life. I will still need to pay to maintain it, but I can, what we call in a jargon, to sweat your asset. And that means I will elongate the life of the assets for as long as I can. So if I was renting a VM in Azure, I'd pay every month for it to be in top-notch conditions, looked
Yeah.
after, updated, upgraded, moved to new hardware every so often, and so on. And that's done for me. I'm not even talking about services that comes on top of it, but literally that's where it would be. The opposite side is you build your own data center. It takes a lot of money to build everything. And the middle ground is colocation. And
Okay.
this is why people tend to go there, is that you pay a rental, so you don't own everything. So you rent half of it and you pay for the other half. So you'll buy your servers, your switches, your storage, you put it together. You still need to maintain it, but at least anything around the building, the power, the cooling, the security, and so on is looked after for you. And so it provides, if you want, again, we're talking about tools, just like AI is a tool. The cloud's a tool, colocation is a tool, especially from a program project manager perspective or an SME, they're tools at their disposal that can fix certain types of problems. It's going to be a multifaceted answer. From an AI perspective, I think what we're going to see is that the what we call neo clouds are really looking after AI cloud environments, and there are a few very big ones that are very well funded and taken off right now. Those guys are going to grow massively, right? Because it's an easy way, very quick way to get started, especially when we're considering that a lot of the GPUs and so on are not easily accessible if you wanted to do things yourself, right?
Mm.
So that's still a good way to get started. And those guys are going to grow. What we're going to see is you're going to see that pendulum going cloud first, cloud AI first. And then at some point, it's going to start moving back. And we're going to see exactly the same dynamic we're seeing for the cloud. Cloud continues to grow at double digits, really, really high growth, but people are now considering the cloud for what it is, which is the hotel room, and they're now considering rental as a way to actually mitigate some of the risk and actually manage their costs more
Mm.
appropriately. So if you look at the traditional way of finding collocation up until we started, was even if you used a traditional broker, you told the broker what you wanted, they'd make phone call or email to everybody, then they'd bring you the stuff, then you'd go see the facility and so on, so on, so on. But even just to get the pricing and to get to the end of it, it was 6 weeks. And we transact manual transactions, and it is 6+ weeks. When we move to something that's more standardized and automated, you narrow down that. I mean, today, if we wanted to have a cost of collocation in the UK, it's 5-10 seconds. Letting go of many things, many things. I think for me, it's a constant evolution of what I'm doing. I'm never standing still. I left a fairly coveted job about 2 years ago to launch Stack District, to join Infrastructure Masons and help them on both fronts. I am learning massively. But what that also means is when you learn and you do new things, you need to let go of everything you've done before. Not
Yeah.
because it is hard, isn't it? But for me, this is one of the major parts is literally learn to let go. The other one, and I will tell you just as an aside, is let go of work, right? I mean, once you work for yourself, you're always in it. It's an excellent question, and it is such an important one at the moment where we always want to do more with less, and it's not because we're asked to, but because this is the logical things with the AI tools coming up, with all the practices that are evolving, with being more nimble when we want to deliver things, with spending less money, making more profits, and so on. That's not necessarily a bad thing. This is how the world works, and we've got to
Yeah.
make it move forward. But if you take it to the dinner table, if you take it to bed, if you wake up with it, if you take it to lunch, if you take it to sport, if you take it to whatever else you're doing, you'll exhaust yourself. And story for another day. Trust me on that. You do not want to be exhausted by it.